it was nearly exactly 5 years ago that my boss confronted me with a difficult decision. He offered me to leave the well-established, prestigious and secure job as a head of project management and instead work full-time for DevOps, for our DevOps transformation. Now, 5 years ago was a time when it was still, the DevOps movement was just at its beginning, and it was still possible to go to conferences, read IT magazines, or talk to tool vendors and CEOs without being confronted all the time with the terms DevOps. And yet, I took the challenge. And what happened then, I couldn't imagine in my wildest dream. And while project management has shrunk to meaningless size in Swisscom, I'm standing here today talking about our transformation story. Now, the title of this talk is, I should remember the title. So it's Controlled Anarchy, a large complex organization goes DevOps. So I probably need to talk about what a large complex organization is. I work for Swisscom. Swisscom is the leading IT and telco provider in Switzerland. We are around 17,000 employees, whereof 4,500 work in the IT department. And together we are responsible for more than 200,000 kilometers of copper and fiber cables, more than 15,000 servers. We have probably every tool and technology that you can think of in our systems. And all this needs to work seamlessly together to provide the premium services that our customers deserve. And from an organizational point of view, we were organized in these typical silos. So we had business on one side, IT on the other side. And inside IT, the typical split between development and operation. And as with typical organization, we also had this typical conflicting targets. So IT was organized as a pure cost center, always being too late and too expensive. And while development was pushing for fast and continuous delivery, operation was trying to avoid them because they were responsible for stability and availability. So this was leading to more and more tension in the organization, and this is basically the starting point. Now, in this talk, I want to give you a brief overview of our transformation and then go in a bit more details in some aspects that are probably not so obvious from a transformation point of view, but still play an important role. And this is job architecture, self-organization, and performance management. But let's start with our transformation. Now, John Kotter defines in his change model that the first step is that you should increase the urgency before you start the change. And for that, you need to know why you're going to do a change. Now, Swisscom was a project company. We implement more than 100 projects a year. And if you measure the success of a project by the 3 factors in time, in quality, and in scope, then industry surveys show that only about 50% of all projects are successful. 50%. That's not a great figure. And although I do not have the real numbers for Swisscom, I guess it's probably pretty much the same in Swisscom as well. And this is only one side of the story. The other side is that the average project duration in Swisscom took around 14 to 16 months. And if you take our new competitors like Skype, like Netflix, like WhatsApp, this time was the time when those companies gained 50 million active users. So if you consider this, then project management is simply the wrong approach in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. So we decided to give DevOps a try. And if we talk about the DevOps transformation, then it's quite often, it's basically a cultural transformation. You want to bring new paradigms inside your organization. And what we figured out is if we start such a transformation project, then we need to deal with this project. We need to apply the same paradigms as well for this transformation project. So what we did, we started with something that you could probably call a minimum viable product. We just identified a couple of pilot teams and gave them the freedom and autonomy to try those new principles and then learn and iterate and grow further from this stage. Now, so we took these teams, we gave them the autonomy, we let them self-organize them. And for that reason, that also means that you take away the hierarchy, that you take away the control and command way of working. Now, hierarchy is not only bad, because there are some good things in hierarchy as well. It helps you to align, it helps you to share information. So the big question is, how can we go to self-organization on one side without losing the good things of this hierarchy? And the answer for us was community of practice. So with those communities of practice, we built a network amongst like-minded people that helped them to get a common understanding of what we're talking about, that helped them to share information and to align each other. So with the community of practice and with these pilot teams, they were quite successful. So we decided to take it a step further. And back at this time, Gardner came up with this great idea of the bi-model IT. So we thought this is a good thing. We give it a try as well. And we split it inside the development department. We created kind of two units. One, the agile unit, working according to these new principles, and the other unit more with the core system, where you still work according to old principles. And with this, what happened is that agility and DevOps became extremely fashionable in the company. So everybody wanted to be part of the party. And if you walked around the company, you heard all about sprints and retrospectives and stand-up meetings and so on. But when you looked a bit closer, then you figured out that it was basically just a new label. So you had project phases being relabeled in sprints, normal status meetings being called stand-up meeting, but still taking 2 hours to sit in. So this was not really the kind of agility that we wanted to achieve. So we invested quite a lot of time to kind of align our understanding with all involved people. So we came up with an idea of what agility and DevOps means for us, so that we have this common understanding. After achieving this, we wanted to take it even a step further. And this team, this agile team I was talking about, they were mainly implementing new products. Of course, we had operations involved as well, so to ensure that those products are maintainable and operatable. But at the end of the day, they didn't take care about the 7x24 support, so there was still a handover to production at the end of the project. And this was not our understanding of you build it and you run it. So we decided to take it a step further, and we kind of reorganized the entire IT department so that every software team was no longer responsible only for development, but also for operation. So that was so we break down the silos between application management and development. We bring those two people together. And with this, we also get rid of the bi-model IT approach. We figured out that bi-model IT is the wrong way for us, simply because also the core system needs to be agile, and also the agile system needs to provide highest stability and quality. So we get rid of this and changed all to an agile IT organization. So we gave all those departments and the teams the freedom to do whatever they want and to act as autonomous as possible. And what happened then is that they started to optimize their local kind of working. And unfortunately, this local optimization was leading to some disadvantages on global side. For example, we had teams that decided that they do not want to send any longer change information to the ITSM system simply because it was an old and not so easy to use system, which was good for them, so it improved their work. But on the other side, it had some disadvantages for the still centralized control center. So we decided that we need to have a bit more alignment on this side as well. And what we came up is that we said we want to achieve this alignment with applying the scaled agile framework, SAFe. Now I know that within the industry, SAFe is a controversially discussed topic, and I also seen some implementation of SAFe which are, let's say, special and far away from being agile. But still, if you're in a company with quite a complex and dependent architecture, you need to have kind of a framework that helps you to align each other. And if you apply it wisely, then it can help you at least at this point in time until you come to a better agility on this side. Up to this point, all the change was mainly driven out of IT. So, of course, we always try to involve the business unit, but it was mainly driven out of the IT department. And we achieved an extremely good operational agility. But this is not enough. If you have, for example, your budgeting process in the company still funding yearly budget, or the feedback loops that you implemented didn't feed back into the strategy, then the agility is not of much, or not of that the value that we really want to go. So for that reason, we decided that we want to go more towards the strategic agility, so really bringing agile to the entire company and exactly changing those processes I mentioned before. And this is where we stand at the moment. So we started this about half a year ago and are still working on, whatever bottleneck comes next, we're trying to overcome this and change this situation. And I want to go now a bit more detail into 3 areas. And the first area is the job architecture. There is the saying that nothing beats an agile team. And if we talk about an agile team, then we talk about the cross-functional team being really responsible on their side. Now, the important thing with those agile teams is that you really shift the responsibility away from the individual persons or roles and come to a team responsibility so that you have team targets and the teams help each other to achieve their goals. To do this, you need to change the skills as well, and T-shaping, so know everything about something and something about everything, is very important to achieve that. So if you have T-shaping in place and good people, then it really doesn't matter which role that you're coming from, because you just help your team to achieve your next target. Unfortunately, this is not really true, because we had situations when people were really doing the same job in the same team and taking or sharing this responsibility together. But due to their different role background, they had different salaries. So we've probably had testers with a lower salary than developers, but they're at the end of the day doing the same job. So we figured out that these job architectures that we have in place, that this is hindering real team responsibility. So we took that and we simplified our job architecture. Coming from more than 200 different job descriptions, we reduced it to only 3 job descriptions. Lean HR leaders for organization, Lean HR leaders for teams, and DevOps engineer. Each of these job descriptions, they have different levels, and to that levels, they are bound to a wage scale. With this system in place, the role now really doesn't matter any longer, because you can just be coding to the level that you get your salary, basically. And the second good thing about this is that even DevOps engineer can reach same salary levels as leaders. So you do not have to change kind of your career path to get to a higher salary level. We implemented this in the entire IT department. That means by April this year, everybody got the new contract. And what we did was quite some up and downgradings as well to kind of reflect that, to be a bit a fairer situation. Now, with up and downgrading, it's not that easy, because on one side, the salary, the budget, the overall budget for salary, we couldn't increase that dramatically. And on the other side, we have relatively strong unions that prevent us to do too much downgradings. So there was a bit a limited area where we can play. But what we achieved is to make this, with the change, we were able to clear the greatest injustice that we had in the system. And now with every salary round that we go, we can make the system a bit more fairer. Next thing I would like to talk about is self-organization. And self-organization, as I said, nothing beats an HR team, and an HR team should be self-organized. Now, achieving self-organization is not that easy, and it's basically not that easy because we trained our employees for decades to work in a waterfall world. So they are really used to this control and command way of working. And if you now take the existing organization and simply tell the team leader that he's now to work as a scrum master or a product owner, this will not really help to bring you additional self-organization. So we said, like, if we want to achieve this self-organization, then we really need to make an organizational change as well that is supporting this. And we will hear Spotify this afternoon as well. So Spotify helped us there as well. So we decided that instead of having this classical organization, we organize ourselves in tribes and squads. Now the difference for Swisscom is that we decided that each employee is reporting directly to the tribe chief, which will lead to a situation where a tribe chief has 50 to 100 direct employees. And if you have that many employees that you're responsible for, then you're forced to change your leadership style. So you really have to delegate whatever is possible and only deal with those issues that really have to be on your side, for example, due to legal requirements. This is the change we did. Now, changing an organization is easy. You draw the new org chart, you define a date, you change the SAP system, change is done, full point. Coming to self-organization and making this thing happen is much more difficult. And our two key learnings there were, first of all, it takes time. And I guess you need to give everybody involved, you need to give them the time to experience these new paradigms, to learn how this is really going. And the second thing we learned is here the role of an HR coach is very important. So if you have somebody that really supports the team in learning this new way of working, in learning these new paradigms, helping them to reflect on their working is extremely helpful and will help the team to learn this faster. Now, the big question about self-organization is always, does it work as well if we talk about money, if we talk about salary and bonuses? And this is where performance management comes into play. And the big question here is your boss really the right person to evaluate your performance? And more often than not, I had the situation that my boss was not really seeing 100% of my work. So they only saw a fraction. And having a performance review at the end of the year always felt a bit weird, especially since we discussed goals that we defined at the beginning of the year that are anyway no longer valid. So it kind of didn't felt right. So at Swisscom, we believe that this should be taken to the team as well. And not only performance management, but also the personal development and behavioral feedback on this side. So we have these three: development, performance, and feedback. And talking about development, the idea here is that the individual is really in charge of his or her own development. So he should act like an own brand and develop itself further. The idea is that within the team, you kind of share what kind of additional skills are needed in the future due to technology change, due to whatever happens around you. And on the other side, also to give feedback about potential of each individual. And then we grant each person the right to use 5 days of training per year. And we leave it really up to every employee to use those days as good as possible and trust that they invest the time wisely. Second thing is performance management. Now, if you look at the performance of your employee, then you could say that about 50% of all employees are in an average distribution, so they just do a good job of what they're supposed to do. So we said we do not want to spend too much time on those employees, but more focus on the low and the high performers, so on the exception. So the idea here is to give, each team should now give to the tribe chief once a year a list with high and low performers. And how the team is doing this is really up to the team. We experimented with self-evaluation with peer feedback. We experimented with paydays where you distribute artificial money. And we experimented also with peer feedback where we just take the average out of the teams. And the last thing is constant feedbacks in the teams. And this feedback is basically a moderated session where you just give honest and open feedback within the team. Now, those 3 events, they usually happen once a year. But this is not the only thing when feedback happens. So usually they build on the HR rituals where you do post-mortem feedback sessions, where you do like your usual retrospectives. And this is also what we learned when applying this. For teams that do not have a feedback culture established, for those teams it is a bit odd to evaluate each other when it has a salary impact. But those teams that have a good feedback culture already established, for them it is seen as extremely transparent, fair, and valuable. I would like to end this talk with 4 key takeaway sessions. Usually you should always go with 3, but I guess you can manage 4, so that's okay. So first of all, manage your transformation like an HR product. Second, you should think about the new job architecture to really help to share responsibilities. Then foster self-organization by even reorganizing your company and bring everything possible to the team, even the performance process. Thanks a lot.